Avoid rescuing people. We learned this in psychotherapy training. You cannot rescue people, and it's even detrimental to them.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the HR Leaders Podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by Wagner Denuzzo, a pioneer in leadership development and organizational capability. Wagner blends his rich experience as a psychotherapist, executive, and transformational leader with a deep commitment to shaping the future of work. Today, we're going to be talking about his new book, Leading to Succeed: Essential Skills for the New Workplace. During the episode, Wagner shares the top leadership skills that you need to succeed in tomorrow's workforce, the 3 leadership expressions required for a balanced life integrating character, community, and career, and lastly, the 5 Ds that describe the new workforce and explore the new framework for HR systems that guide organizations to people-first success. As always, before we jump to the video, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. With that being said, let's jump in. Wagner, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
Thank you so much for inviting me. Chris, this is a great opportunity to talk about the future. So thank you for inviting me.
It's been a while. How are you? How have things been?
It's been like everybody else's life. My life is not that different. I think everybody's rushing. But this time is a little different. I would say we are all rushing towards a meaningful outcome. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very important to note. We are not just rushing to get things accomplished. We are rushing to get to meaningful outcomes. It's different.
Yeah. But in many ways, you're on a new journey yourself, a new path. Can you tell everyone a little bit more about that and the work that you're doing now?
Yes, since I was the head of Future of Work, I left mid last year. I finished my book. My book has been completed and it came out. It's called Leading to Succeed. And it's my life's work, given that I'm combining my licensed psychotherapist experience with my executive experience in leadership and Future of Work. And to be honest, Chris, this is my life's work because since I left corporate last year, it's been amazing how much I'm learning about the new workforce entering the workplace. I'm learning about the transformation in HR that's happening across collectively. And this is a great moment for us to be thinking about the future, not being stuck in the past. So I'm doing well. I'm speaking a lot in conferences. And this is a great time.
Am I hearing your bird in the background?
I do have a bird.
No, that's amazing. No, it's fine. No, don't worry about that. I thought I was hearing things. No? In my headset, I was like, is there a bird in our studio? No,
there is a bird downstairs.
I love it.
It's hard for her to be quiet.
No, I love it. Don't worry. I grew up with, we had a parrot growing up in the house. So I realized. To your point you just mentioned though, do you think that when you're working in corporate that sometimes you're operating in a bubble? Because you mentioned that you're learning so much more now you've left. Do you think that we're caught in a bubble that we don't really see what's actually happening outside?
This is so timely. Yesterday I was in the Drucker Forum. They are initiating a 5-year effort to discover what's next for management in organizations. And one sentence was really important to me. They're saying they're moving from the enterprise to ecosystems. And that's essential for us to understand. Like the boundaries within an organization, they have to open up to different talent pools, different ways of working, and partners and independents, fractional workers are all coming in to create value for the organization. So yes, up until last year, I would say, yes, the boundaries are set and you had to focus on the strategic intent of your organization. That's why it's not insular, but it is much more focused on internal activity. Now, if you ask me, I think things are turning very quickly into an ecosystem of value creation. And I think that's a wonderful experience for everyone.
Yeah, it's exciting. Name of the book, by the way, Leading to Success. Why did you name the book that? And I know you very well. You definitely thought about that a lot.
I did because no, thank you, Chris, because I have been thinking about this for many years. Why leadership is only reserved for managers, high potentials, and executives. When the workplace is changing so dramatically, your managers might be your coaches for your career, but they are not seeing your day-to-day work because you're working cross-functional teams, you're working across. And dawned on me, why not talk about leading to succeed? Because that's the only way you're going to succeed in the future of the workplace. Because cultivating leadership skills from the beginning of your career allows you to start doing self-management. And that's a core belief of mine. Emotional development is impacting the way you're acting today. If you're not aware, what I say, aware, awareness, acceptance, and action. I think these are the three ways in which you can be successful because awareness is not enough. But you have to accept your self-limiting beliefs. You have to accept the expectations that come at you and make you decide for things that might not be aligned with your values and beliefs. You need to start self-management from the beginning of your career so you don't get into those workforce dynamics that become very negative and can impact your reputation, by the way. So, leading to succeed is just that. Start cultivating leadership skills from the beginning because you're going to be much more successful because you're going to be in teams. Team dynamics can trigger emotional reactions. And I love that we are getting to this point where people are bringing their whole selves, but with the awareness of their emotional triggers. And I think that's an essential piece.
You said just before we hit record, you said something that I wrote down, which was work in the flow of life. To your
Yeah.
point of bringing your full self to work, could you explain a little bit more about what you mean by work in the flow of life?
People are making decisions. One statement that I make on the book is about the new workforce, the 5 Ds of the new workforce. They are distributed. No matter how you try to collocate people, you still have distributed skills, distributed workforce. They are dynamic because they're thinking about months, experiences that last 1 year, 2 years. They need to be dynamic because that's how they're going to advance and grow their careers. They are digital because they're digital natives and they want a digital commercial grade digital experience at work. But they also are very diverse because the demographics are changing rapidly and inevitably we're going to be a much more diverse workforce. Globally, we already are. But even in the United States, we're going to be more diverse internally. And lastly, but not least, is discerning. They're very discerning. That's when I say the work now is in the flow of life, not the reverse, because they're making decisions about how to go about making a living, being part of the economy, and not harm their personal well-being and the experience they have. They're also discerning about what kind of work they are willing to do and what kind of companies they are willing to work for because they're thinking about the planet, the climate. So it's a broader view of how do you go about getting a job. And I love that because it could be an independent job, could be a fractional job, could be a decision to be a founder. We have so many founders now. But I think the workplace is becoming much more dynamic and much more exciting, to be honest.
Who did you write this book for?
I originally wrote to Gen Zs, but what's happening is that it's resonating with a lot of people. I just had a direct report from another organization that I work with. He's a VP. He said, I read this book and I feel like you're talking to me. I said, if that resonates, great, because I don't think many people have been talking about leadership at the level of emotional development and understanding what I call the lies. Learned helplessness is the idea that Martin Seligman talks about this in positive psychology. They did studies. When you start trying new outcomes and trying to take action, but you are not able to change the outcome, this is called learned helplessness. So we even stop trying new things because you know the outcome is going to be the same. Then the lies is the L for learn helplessness, but it's also the imposter syndrome. We all experience them. I'm normalizing them in the book because once you advance to a new experience, obviously you're going to feel a little like You don't know exactly what to do, and the fraud and the imposter syndrome comes up. The only secret here is not to allow it to derail your career, but it's
Mhm.
normal and you should seek support. Then the E is for the expectations that come externally, external expectations. We have so many expectations come at us. We need to be discerning. And the last one is really important, self-limiting beliefs. As an immigrant, and I share my story, as an immigrant without English, without money, without social support, coming from a poor family in Brazil, no high education was not that high. You start developing self-limiting beliefs. Maybe I don't have the education to become famous, no, but to become successful in the US. I had a lot of self-limiting beliefs about my ability to speak, to work. So those lies, we need to check them because the new generation is having a lot to deal with. The world is really complex. So when I wrote the book was for Gen Zs, but it's resonating across because I talk about leadership and emotional development in a way that is resonating with a lot of people.
Yeah, because that was a surprise to me when you said that and that's why I wanted to ask because everything, even in the short amount of time that we've spent speaking about it speaks to me too,
Yeah,
and I'm sure it speaks to everyone listening
it
um,
does.
right now. And I wish I had something like this in my hands earlier in my career.
You're
Um,
not the first one to say it. That's exciting. You're like the number five that said that I just wish I had this book when I started my career.
because you kind of feel like it's being done to you. You don't really feel that you have any power, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
When you first join a company, you kind of
yeah,
waiting to be tapped on the shoulder
yeah,
for opportunities, etc. Whereas now what
yeah.
I see is the people I'm interviewing, they're demanding the training and development. They're demanding that they want to make sure that they work for a company that takes care of their well-being. All of the things that we didn't, they want to feel empowered, if that makes sense, to
Yeah.
take charge of their
And
career.
and I love that you're saying this because that is a sentence that I put on the book too. What senior leaders need to be accustomed to is distributed powers to distributed teams. So distributed power to distributed teams will get to the outcomes that you desire. But for senior leaders, I'm very empathic towards them right now. I know people are saying they don't know the new reality, the new workforce, but you can understand why executives are having a hard time managing this constellation of complexity in and outside the organization. So I'm very empathic, but they themselves have to realize that less control, allowing power to be distributed into self managed teams, are going to yield the innovation, the outcomes that they desire. The problem that I see, Chris, to be honest, is that we are focused on efficiency. Efficiency usually leads to perfectionism, usually leads to silo thinking because you have to specialize to be efficient. Instead of broadening the experience of cross functional collaboration, actually, we are focusing so myopically that we might lose the opportunity for innovation. So that's a preoccupation of mine.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Is that fear driven? Why do you think that's the case?
No, it's because think about this. This is a little deeper, but think about the human need to feel in control and safety.
Yeah.
Efficiency does both.
That's what I meant. Yeah. Good. Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Innovation doesn't. Innovation is can we try, experiment? Now we are getting to curiosity and courage.
Mm.
I talk on the book, this is interesting. I talk on the book, leaders have to be comfortable with the three leadership expressions. Because let's be real, leadership doesn't exist if you don't express through behaviors, actions, and thinking. So the three expressions, one is consciousness. You have to be conscious about the situation, the context you're in, the people that have different realities than you. So consciousness becomes really important for leaders. Then curiosity about others, curiosity about new ways of thinking and working. And then the courage. I have this, and I never forget because it's on the book too. And it's from IBM. I think they're going to be proud that I shared this. I used to bring millennials at the time when millennials were coming up into the workforce to meet with senior executives. That was my way of bridging the gaps. And one of the millennials turned to this highly successful managing director in Europe and said, but how much authority do you really have in this big company to make decisions? He just looked at him, smiled, and said, I have as much authority as my courage allows me to have.
Mm.
So I thought it was brilliant because it's not about the authority that you have in the operating models of today and yesterday. It's like the operating systems of tomorrow is more about courage, curiosity, and thinking differently. So I love that. I think hopefully people are thinking that way.
Yeah, I think
You know?
it took me many years to build that courage. It comes over time, as you develop in your career. But sometimes I see people do the opposite. Is that the more they develop in their career, they become more cautious. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? They become
of course.
less risk taking. Whereas
Of course.
I wish now I would have took more risks earlier in my career to experience and taste new things and try things. Because then when you get a mortgage and you have kids and
Yes.
you have responsibilities, it's easier said than done, right?
But that's the role of empathy in the world. We talk about empathy as if it was just something that you do every day. No, empathy requires you to understand your emotional reaction to people who are not courageous, people who are, in the line of the hierarchical organization. Let's be a little more empathic towards those folks because they are humans like you. They probably would like to be more courageous. They just don't feel that they can. So let's start there and start creating the conditions for people to be a little more courageous. And, it comes with time. I wasn't that courageous either. But let me ask you this. Isn't it true that courage always comes out of conviction and beliefs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
First, you need to understand what are your beliefs, your vision of the world that's yours, not your parents, not your communities. It's your beliefs and views of the world. And then you activate courage.
Yeah.
Before that, it's impossible.
You do. You have to kind of the cheesy line of you need to believe it to achieve it
Yeah.
is very true, and that's one of the things I think for me and Shane that we always have this very strong mentality of no matter what the world says or friends, family, we believe that we can do it, and that's all that matters.
But it's not easy, right?
No,
It's
it's
not
not
easy.
easy. No, everyone told me when we would start this company that we would fail. Every single person.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't risk it. You're gonna fail. Companies fail. Startups fail. Don't risk. Stay at your job. The society, parents, everyone said don't do it, but we had the belief in ourselves that we could do it, and that's all that mattered. To your point, we're like,
Oh, that's wonderful. That's why I like you so much. I think you guys are doing a fantastic work because HR is transforming too. Let's not forget that.
of course,
Leadership is transforming. The workforce is already very diverse. So it's time for us to start taking bold moves towards something because just being cautious in doing what's expected of us is not going to lead to a very positive outcome.
100%. What do you think about the misconception, or do you think it's a misconception? We hear a lot on LinkedIn and articles about Gen Z being lazy. I see it a lot, right? I'm sure you see similar comments.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on that?
I love to see that because that gives us an opportunity to have a dialogue. Because I prefer that people are transparent and openly voicing their opinions, because then we can have an opportunity to respond. And I mentor a lot of Gen Zs, and I have to say my experience is so different. I mentor people who are carrying the burden of their family at age 25. I mentor somebody who is the head of their internal consulting, their universities, they're presidents of their class. They're trying to maximize their time to have a positive impact. And let's not forget the 5Ds that I mentioned. They're more discerning because let's be real. What they're saying is don't promise me that I'm going to use all my skills. You demand so many skills on the job description. And then I come in, you just use 30% of them. People are not willing to do that because they're not growing. We know this for many, many years already, that we over exaggerate the skills that we need, and then we bring people in to use just 20, 30% of the skills. They're not going for that. So it's not that they are lazy. They want the assurance that they can maximize their time and maximize their skills because I say master is in the moment. You only learn in the flow of work by being stretched and challenged. So that's what they're saying, but it's far from lazy, I would say. I think what we are confused is that we didn't have the choice.
Yeah, we
I think
didn't.
the new generation now has a choice.
That's true. We did have a choice, right? But it didn't feel that way.
It didn't feel that way, exactly. We didn't feel we had a choice.
We did feel that choice. You mentioned skills. In your opinion, what are the skills required to succeed in this new world of work? In 2024 and beyond.
Yeah. As I said before, I believe there is a mechanism, a practice that you can take for anything that you want to develop. Awareness is not enough. How many diet plans we have in the planet and programs to lose weight? If it was that easy, what to do, we know. But how to do it, it requires a process of reflection, introspection, self-acceptance, because it's so hard to accept our flaws, isn't it? It's so difficult to accept as a natural piece of life because we are imperfect. We are imperfect. But self-acceptance will give you the free way to take action and accountability for doing new things and the skills to develop. So that's the mechanism. However, I talk about the cards. Cognitive mastery, for example, is the ability to understand how you're being triggered. Let's be real, nobody's immune to emotional triggers. I am, you are, we have emotional triggers. It's just that cognitive mastery is the ability to understand that you have a reaction, you can pause, just like Frankl said in his quote about that you have the moment of pause that you can reflect and respond. That's your freedom and your power, in the power of pausing and responding. So cognitive mastery is exactly that. How can you see the situations differently? You can be authentic, but not be rigid the way you do things everywhere you go, because you need to be part of the situation. So cognitive mastery is this whole thing about being conscious where you are and conscious of your reactions and conscious of how you should respond. Then you have the, alignment that's really important. You have to be adaptive in your resilience, because resilience is not about, oh, I'm resilient because I'm tough it up. It's not grit and it's not being tough. Adaptive resilience is being exposed to situations that are really difficult, overcoming them, managing emotionally, then going through the process of understanding different situations, and being witness of people having difficult times. One thing that I tell managers that's really helpful nowadays is being that we are pushing managers to take care of the well-being of their people is kind of an unfair ask. But managers need to know they don't need to solve for anybody's problems. What they need is to witness and be caring and empathic, but avoid rescuing people. We learned this in psychotherapy training. You cannot rescue people, and it's even detrimental to them.
They don't. Yeah, you're taking away the opportunity from them to
Exactly.
to learn and grow from it.
So that's another skill that you need. And then there is the reciprocity. I think we forget about the reciprocity alignments. Like it's not, oh, you give an opportunity to come to our podcast, oh, you come to my workshop. No, it's about what do I add value to you and you add value to my life. And the reciprocity is about the value that we create in each other's relationships. So this is going to be really critical because I think that social capital is power and you need to think how to use it. And the last one I say is this ability to to being discerning and being much more aware of how you come across in sense making. Sense making to me is very important because imagine all the signals that we are capturing, seeing around the corner. You have to distill that and synthesize and be concise about how do you understand the world. So sense making, I think, is the skill of the future.
I've never even heard someone say that before. Sense making. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? That's just the kind of one I haven't heard come up a lot.
Yes, because we have been saying this to senior leaders most often. You need to understand the market. You need to understand your customers. You need to understand the dynamics in the business. You need to understand efficiencies. You need to understand everything, right? We ask leaders to understand everything. And by the way, this is important for everyone. Self-confidence has nothing to do with your knowledge. Being self-confident is having the belief that you can learn what you don't know, and then you can solve for problems that come at you. That's self-confidence. If you have the burden of knowledge, that's not self-confidence. That's the burden of knowledge. You don't need to know everything. So what you said is true. Sense making, people don't know what that is. It is exactly that. Absorbing the data, data-driven informed decisions require data in analytics. So it's using your critical thinking, understand the signals. Sometimes you have signals. I did in my career. I had the signal of the downturn financially in 2008, and I stopped my private practice. I went into IBM because I saw the signals. I saw that people are avoiding confirming contracts and all that. So you have to see the signals. You have to synthesize. Imagine the amount of information that comes at you. You have to synthesize the information, and
Love that.
that's a really important concept. How do you synthesize all this? And then the next step is sense making. How do you make sense of all this and translate to your people? Because the last thing I say is clarity creates capacity. Nobody has capacity to stretch. We can stretch time, we can stretch capacity. All we can do is to be clearer about the direction we take and create capacity through clarity. And I think that's an important concept as well.
Oh, I love that one. You just threw that in there. I love that. I love.
No, it's in the book.
No,
Clarity creates capacity.
no. I love that one. No, you mentioned that around the self-confidence has nothing to do with knowledge.
Yeah.
Is it the application of the knowledge which builds the self-confidence? Is it Is it in the execution? Because as you said, everyone knows how to do a diet, but how many people actually do it?
But I understand the application of things, but I think I go farther into the universe of the individual. Is self-acceptance. If I accept that I feel guilty because I didn't make to the anniversary of my spouse, I didn't make to a personal commitment because I was working, all this creates a lot of insecurities because you start feeling guilty, shame. Guilt, shame, all this creates a lot of fear of being seen as somebody who is not valuable. Let's be real. We all have that. So I think we need to reverse that.
Yeah.
Self-confidence comes, I'm aware of my flaws. I'm aware that I wasn't perfect. Being aware that you're not perfect gives me so much more self-confidence because
empowering.
now I'm not afraid of being exposed.
Yeah, because most people they won't try something because of the fear of being, seen as a failure or being exposed, right? And they have a unhealthy relationship with failure. And I think that
being human.
Of being human, with being human. One of the things I see with high performers and people that I've had many incredible guests on the show is many of them have a very healthy relationship with failure. In fact, they love it. I would go as far. I would say me and Shane, we love delving into the unknown, making mistakes, failing often, and we have that. That's our relationship. And when we learn something, we're not perfect, but we do our best to immediately try and execute on that learning, whether it works or not.
But can I ask you, when something fails, what's your first reaction? How do you guys react?
Our first reaction probably is, what can we learn from it?
Oh,
That's
wow.
probably, because or like, depends what you mean by failure, right? Because when something doesn't work the first time, I don't even think of that as failure. I just
Yeah.
think that's the price you pay. Like that's just a part of the process, if that makes sense. I don't even see it as a failure, if that makes sense. In the traditional sense that you're referring to, I just see that this is the process. Let me give you an example. I've said this before. Like, I grew up skateboarding, right? And if I want to learn a trick, it's probably take me 1,000 attempts to do a kickflip before I land it. I don't. The first time I try it and I don't land it, I don't see that as a failure.
Exactly.
I just see that as part of the process that I've got to keep doing it until I succeed. So you're just kind of learning, okay, maybe if I move my foot a little bit to the left, and the same with business, right? Maybe you
Yeah.
pivot, maybe you just take a pivot this way and try
Yeah.
this angle, right? So I don't even see it as failure. I don't think there's such thing in that sense. We learn from it and
Yeah.
we just keep going. And the momentum is where the confidence comes. If you keep doing it and you build the momentum, you become more and more confident along the journey.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
yeah.
But you do need to have an emotional, stable emotional life. Because when you're highly stressed, when you're highly anxious, the reactions come up, don't they?
Oh, I am definitely not perfect in that
Yeah.
sense. I've had panic attacks. I've had struggles in my mental health. I've gone too far in one direction.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
I that one of the things that Shane helps me is to stay. I go too deep, and I stretch myself too much. There is a point with a breaking point
Yeah.
in there as well, and I'm still learning where that point is in
Uh,
myself.
Isn't it amazing when we can say that without shame or guilt? I feel that way too. I went to therapy. I had panic attacks. Being an immigrant with no social support wasn't easy, but I overcame so many things. I learned so many things. Creativity was part of living in the United States. So no regrets there, you
No,
know?
you can't. Having regret doesn't serve you in any way. That's kind of one of the other things I look at is like, is what I'm doing, saying, thinking right now getting me closer to my goals? And if the answer is no, just forget about it.
But how do you transition that to HR? If we have a minute, I would love to hear because you talk to so many HR leaders who are trying to transform. Do you think somebody's doing the right thing? What do you think is the right thing to do?
I don't think anyone would say that they're doing the right thing, right? The good thing, the leaders that I see that are doing really well are ones that give themselves grace, that don't put this unachievable expectation on themselves that they can do everything and succeed at everything. They're willing to fail forward. So
Yeah,
rather than creating a 3-year plan that's, let's be honest, never gonna it's gonna change 1,000 times, they're willing to experiment, take risks,
yeah,
be wrong, and say, hey, that was a mistake, and with their team, so they're very adaptable and they're highly resilient. And those are the leaders that I see that during the pandemic, they really rose to the occasion that
yeah.
during that time, if that makes sense, and the time that we're in now, as well. So
That's so true.
because let's think about it, when we first started, HR looks almost nothing like what it did 10 years ago when I
No,
started. Like, almost, if you said you're getting into HR because you enjoy working with people, that's not the reason to get into HR, in my opinion.
no, it's not.
Whereas that's what you used to hear, right? 10 years ago, yeah, I love working with people. That's no longer, yes, that's part of it, of course, but it's much bigger than that. The impact that you're having both internally, externally, societally, is huge. The impact,
Yeah,
and that's why me and Shane stayed in this space, because we realized the conversations that we're having and the content that we create is impacting the lives of millions of
I
of people, not employees,
I
people,
agree.
all over the world. That's way beyond what people think when they think of HR?
I totally agree. And it's funny that you said that because the other day I was doing the Future of HR webinar. And I have to say, I believe in this. Let go of the fixation of completing tasks. We are focused on policies, processes, and programs. First of all, programs sometimes delay people's advancement because you put, like women, you put in a program because, oh, they're not ready. They're not ready because we didn't give them experience or take a bet on people and just put them in place and support them. So the three P's, right? The policies, process, and programs. Let go of that a little bit because they're not yielding the results. Focus on connection, co-creation, and capability. People
Mm,
say, oh no, we need processes in HR. Yes, we know, but process to support what? A capability. The capabilities to support the business. Like how do you create critical organizational capabilities? That's a capability of HR. Organizational design, work design, all these is capabilities, but we are not there yet.
no.
So focus on capabilities, not on the process, because that just makes you feel a little better because there is research. MIT just did a research, and this is interesting. AI, why CEOs are upset because people are not adopting AI? Because psychologically, humans prefer to have a sense of agency and contribution by seeing completed tasks that they did it themselves.
Mm,
That's what the research shows. So even when you can automate a task, you prefer to do and complete it because you have a sense of completion contribution because it's more tangible. So we need to understand that, it's not that people don't want to adopt, that they don't feel what's my role if I don't do this.
yeah.
They don't think that knowledge workers should be focusing on knowledge, which is abstraction of reality. They can create value through ideas, to communication, to connection, co-creation. There's so many ways to do it.
Mm.
But we are in a good place because people are opening up to all this. So this is good.
Do you think that given all of the advances of technology with AI, large language models, that a lot of what you're talking about becomes even more important
Yes.
now?
Yes. It does because if you think about the capability, let's talk about capability. How amazing to have the opportunity to build capabilities that you don't need to be an engineer, that you don't need to be a coder. You don't need, what you need is to understand what is the capability and how does that capability can be deconstructed and how that this construction can be rebuilt and re-engineer an organization with less hierarchical roles, with roles that really add value and leave these large language models and all the AI, Gen AI, to help you in the process. All this is a partnership. So I'm loving what the capability can do for us. It's just that human beings have to feel comfortable, not have tangible results at their fingertips all the time. We are very analog. We are in a digital world, but humans are very analog.
Yeah, never really thought about it that way. So it's going to be even more important that we would think about things like curiosity and creativity. Those are the
Yeah.
because we can get the AI to do the technical work. So it's
Yeah.
not having someone who can be more, yeah, creative and chat and to challenge the status quo. Those are the kind of skills that we didn't really highlight as the critical skills in
Yeah.
organizations that are now going to be, much more important power skills, as we call it, right? As we move forward. Listen, I can talk to you forever. We've got to save some for people to actually buy the book. So,
Yes, that would be nice.
before I let you go, what would be your sort of parting piece of advice? And then where can people connect with you and then grab a copy of the book? Where's the best place?
Look, the book is called Leading to Succeed. It's on Amazon. Please go ahead. It's free now to go there and get it. Now, one thing, I have a website, of course, wagnerdenuzzo.global. I'm doing a lot of speaking. I'm focusing on speaking because you have is the one to many is broader the impact that you have. So I'm doing a lot of speaking. And if you want to bring me to speak, buy my books. I come to speak for free because I want to really to make these messages be exponentially more impactful. So that's my goal.
Amazing. As always, anyone who's listening right now or watching, the links are below. So whatever platform you're listening on, make sure you grab a copy of the book and gift a copy of the book as well. I think this is something really interesting we can gift our children and the people around us as well that are entering the workplace and our employees in general. I think this would be a great a book for someone to give employees who are just entering the workplace.
Totally.
I think that'd be super interesting. If I got a copy of that book on my first day, I think I would have felt a lot more empowered and in my career, and a lot more engaged in the process. But listen, I always appreciate you joining the show and all of the work that you do. I'm really happy for you. You're clearly living your purpose, right? And having an impact. And I wish you all the best until we next speak. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Chris. All the best. Thank you.